Hello everyone. I'm Ellen McNulty. Today is Sunday, October 15th. This is being recorded. So if you're present for the live presentation, you can make comments in the chat box. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can't make comments, but you can certainly contact me by email or some other method. So this is Wise Women Travel, and we're also on Meetup as travel friends. I have had 40 years of travel experience, and I visited 99 countries or more and 47 states. We're on the internet as Wise Women Travel with Ellen. And as I mentioned before, we're also on Meetup. A Meetup group name is Travel Friends. You can reach us at 516-248-3496, or you can reach me at wisewomentravellellen@gmail.com. So travel friends. The people you travel with can make all the difference in your trip. If you like to travel, but you don't have anyone to travel with, if you have friends who maybe don't have the budget to travel, or I know sometimes you can ask people if they want to travel and they say, oh, yes, yes, yes. And then when it comes right down to it, either to picking dates or placing a deposit, suddenly they don't want to go. So this is the opportunity for you to travel with like-minded people. We have been doing this for about 10 years. We've been all over the world, and we do about 10 trips a year. Our vacations are for those who enjoy traveling, meeting people, and making new friends. So you can be a couple, you can come on your own as a solo, or you can bring a friend, whatever it is that you prefer. So where are we going this year? So one of the things we're doing at the beginning of next year, 2024, is that we're going on a 14-day cruise around China, Korea, and Japan. That's in January. We're also doing a 28-day version of that Asia cruise that also goes to Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, and some other places in Southeast Asia. We're going to South Africa and Botswana in October on our first African safari. And of course, what we're talking about tonight is the highlights of Britain, which is taking place in June of 2024. So we do a lot of escorted trips. We do some cruises. We do a number of different things, both in the US, Canada, and around the world. So you travel with us when you want to meet friends who share your interests. It's always a small group trip. This particular one is limited to 18 people. If you're new to the group, you can always make friends to travel with in the group. One of the things I insist upon in my groups is that people are friendly to one another, that it's not cliquey, that you're not feeling like you're on your own, even if you've come on your own to the tour or to the cruise. You can always have your own room. I always look for programs that have lower single supplements. You can join us from anywhere in the world, and we have airfares from many cities. So tonight we're talking about the highlights of Britain. It is an escorted motor coach tour, June 4th to the 14th, 2024. It's limited to 18 persons. The price is $3,769 US per person sharing. That's if you want to share a room with someone else. And if you want a room to yourself, a single is $45.59. Those prices are plus airfare and travel insurance. This is just one of the charming towns that you'll see in the UK or in Great Britain, a quintessential English countryside town. This one happens to be Upper Slaughter Village in the Cotswolds. The Cotswolds are one of the areas we're going to visit on the tour. So what are the benefits of going on a coach tour? Well, especially on a smaller coach tour, our knowledgeable local tour directors share stories and insider information, which will enhance your trip along the way. And you enjoy the camaraderie of a nice small group. I don't know if you've ever gone on a large motor coach tour, but when you do, sometimes you can just get lost in the crowd. 50 people on a motor coach. Sometimes people are all coupled off. They don't interact very much with other people, but that's not the case on something that we do. And you'll always make friends with your travel mates. One of the nice things about going on a motor coach tour too is that someone else is in charge. You don't have to plan your vacation. All you have to do is sign up and pay for your vacation and show up, and everything else will be taken care of for you. By the way, you'll see on some of the slides that it says Line Out Tours. Line Out Tours is also my company. We specialize in Ireland and Great Britain, and we're doing this tour for Meetup and for Wise Women Travel in conjunction with Line Out Tours. Another nice thing about our smaller motor coach tours is our small coaches go where the big boys can't go. So again, we can get you a little bit closer to the action, pull up a little closer to the sightseeing venues. If you want to stop and take a picture, it's not a hassle for a smaller coach to pull into the side of the road. If you're on a really large coach, that can be more difficult. And you also may have 50 people groaning, oh, she wants to take another picture. That's really not the case on a smaller motor coach tour. So we're going to go everywhere from London up to Oxford. There's so much to discover in the UK. It was actually hard to put together a tour that only covered some of my favorite places in Great Britain. There are so many charming villages in the Cotswolds. There's chocolate box cottages. A lot of them are honey-colored stone on winding lanes. You get to visit places like that you've seen in things like Brideshead Revisited and so on. So stately homes, charming cottages on winding lanes, quintessential English countryside. We're visiting Wales as well and Scotland. So on our smaller guided tours, there are no more than 18 on board. So it's a nice congenial group of people. There are already 10 seats sold on this tour. We have unique experiences, private tours to places seldom seen, places that larger motor coach tours can't go, simply because some of the places and some of the hotels don't have the capacity to handle large crowds. We visit your favorite places and our hidden gems. We go where the big coaches can't go. We visit out of the way places and see memorable sights off the beaten path. Our local driver guides, and they're always locals. We wouldn't, for example, have a German driver in England. We would want a local who knows all the highways and byways and can tell you some of the more interesting local stories as well. Many of them don't even have to use a GPS to get around because they know the roads like the back of their hand. Fewer people, you have more space for yourself. And a nice thing on this tour, we have no children. Again, when you go on a big motor coach tour, you can have all ages of people. And sometimes people bring their kids. They're a little too young to be sitting still on a motor coach for many hours at a time. But you won't have that problem on this Highlights of Britain tour. So if you love the idea of group travel, but maximum room for physical distancing, our small group departures can offer you the best of both worlds. You'll have more access to the guide and local experts, and you'll enjoy a little more time at each stop. It's much easier to get 18 people on and off a small motor coach than waiting for 50 people to get off a coach, to use the restroom, to get back on the coach without spending all their time in the shops. It's a whole different experience on a smaller motor coach tour. So it's a touring vacation that delves a bit deeper, one that simply doesn't drop by top sites in major cities, but again, takes you off the beaten track to see each destination through the eyes of the people who know it best, the locals who call it home. With small group size of up to 18 people, you can expect more personalized touring. You avoid large crowds and overpopulated tourist destinations. Whenever we're in a city or a town that might be a little crowded, we always go in the opposite direction to where the big coaches are going. So we're not showing up at a rest stop, for example, when 3 giant motor coaches are showing up all to use the restroom at the same time. And here's our map of where we're going. So we start down in the bottom right-hand corner on Highlights of Britain. We start in London. And we go to Oxford. Now, the numbers all refer to how many nights you're staying in a place. So we're spending one night in London. And of course, you can do pre-nights too before this tour starts. And a lot of people are going to do that. We go to London, Oxford. We're spending 2 nights in the Cotswolds, taking a day trip to Stratford-upon-Avon, which of course is the home of William Shakespeare. Worcester, Denbighshire, and we're now going into Wales. Most tours don't even visit Wales because it's sort of that often overlooked area just to the west of England, but it's one of the most charming areas in the UK, in Great Britain. We're even visiting Snowdonia National Park, and that's a beautiful part of the country. If you like the Beatles, we're going up to Liverpool. From there, we go to York and Castle Howard. Castle Howard was used in Brideshead Revisited and many other period pieces that were set in the UK. We then head to the Lake District. Now, the Lake District is the land of poets in England. It's where the locals would go on their mountain vacation. So lots of lakes, lots of mountains, beautiful scenery. It's a beautiful area of the country, and it's where a lot of the poets got their inspiration in the Lake District. Then we go up into Scotland. Now, there's no actual physical border between England and Scotland. It's called the Scottish Borders, simply because that was the area that was the furthest reach of the Roman Empire during Roman times. So we go into Scotland, we go up to Edinburgh where our tour ends, but before it ends, we're visiting Rosslyn Chapel, which you're familiar with from the Da Vinci Code, if not otherwise. We can also add on extra nights in Edinburgh at the end, but the main part of the tour is the 11-day tour that goes from London up to Edinburgh on the Highlights of Britain. This is the type of vehicle that we use. It's an 18-seater Mercedes coach with reclining seats, air conditioning. You have a driver and sometimes a guide as well. It depends on the size of the tour, but it's always a local, as I mentioned, and it's a nice, smaller group of people. So in terms of meals, you have 10 breakfasts and 5 dinners included. On the nights when we don't have dinner included, because it is a small group, you'll find that people will ask you if you want to go to dinner with them somewhere other than where the group is going. Maybe they're going out to a local restaurant or wherever. You don't ever have to worry about food on this tour. Where are you going to stay? Well, that's, again, the nice thing about the smaller tour. We can stay in more charming, elegant, comfortable hotels. Some are inns, some are castles, and they always reflect the character and charm of the area, a true feeling of the country that you're in. They're not purpose-built, cookie-cutter Holiday Inns, Sheratons. They're unique, and each one exudes its own charm. Here on the bottom, you'll see the Churchill in York. That's one of the hotels that we use. So you can see it's very interesting architecture, all staffed by locals, and just beautiful places to stay. I'll show you some of the other places you'll be staying on this tour too as we go through this presentation. In England, we'll trace the footsteps of famous writers and poets, go through the scenic countryside. In North Wales and Scotland, you'll see spectacular scenery and dramatic castles. Remember that in Wales, there are more castles in Wales than anywhere else in Europe. And that is because the Welsh were always fighting off the British who were invading Wales. And so they built fortifications. Now they're luxury hotels. Some of them are just sightseeing places, but you'll see tons of castles when you go to Wales. So you'll experience all of this on the unforgettable 11-day journey, the Highlights of Britain. We include Britain's most spectacular regions, including the Cotswolds, Snowdonia National Park, the Yorkshire Dales, and the Lake District. You'll discover the medieval shambles and snickleways of York. Now, what are the shambles? York is a particularly old medieval town, and the streets were quite narrow and winding to protect themselves from the elements, that the wind wouldn't blow through the town that quickly. So the streets are called the shambles, and snickleways are the sort of side streets, the little alleyways off the main street, but it's a charming town. You're going to visit Castle Howard, which is one of the most spectacular palaces in the UK. And you're going to get acquainted with the Fab Four at the Beatles Story Museum. Those are just some of the highlights of what we're going to see and do. So you have 10 nights of boutique accommodation, an experienced tour leader and driver, premium mini coach transportation like I showed you before. You have breakfast, and you have your breakfast daily, and you have 5 dinners. Even in Scotland, you're going to have a bagpipe demonstration. We include entrance fees to all the attractions mentioned in the itinerary. And our tour ends in Edinburgh at 5:30 p.m. at the Bonham Hotel. Bonham's a nice hotel right in the center of Edinburgh. And as I mentioned, you might want to stay on a day or two in Edinburgh, or even further in Scotland, just to more fully explore the area. We start in London, that is St. Paul's. So London is where we meet. You get to know one another over a delicious welcome dinner the first night. The accommodations are in the Wellington Hotel by Blue Orchid. You can look that one up online. It's a charming hotel. I've stayed there myself. Of course, you'll see the changing of the guard. We're going up to Oxford. Oxford not only being the university town, but this room was used in the Hogwarts dining hall scenes. You're going to see Anne Hathaway's home in Stratford-upon-Avon, which of course is Shakespeare's home. Anne Hathaway was his wife, and that's one of the most famous buildings in all of England, the thatched roof cottage in which she grew up. Beautiful gardens throughout the Cotswolds. That's what many of the houses look like. That charming honey-colored stone with the slate roofs, stone walls, beautiful gardens. So it's beautiful picture opportunity, especially in June when you'll be there. All the roses will be out like they are in this picture. So when we leave London, we go to Oxford, as I mentioned, and up to the Cotswolds. Oxford is called Dreaming Spires because when you're in the university town, you're looking up at these tall turreted buildings and you're dreaming about everything that you're going to be doing in the future. It's a medieval university town. We take a walk with the tour leader, and then we head off to the Cotswolds. From here, we head to Wales. Now we're heading to mid and upper Wales, national parks like Snowdonia. That's one of the parks that we're going to be visiting. Beautiful coastlines along Wales. Wales is definitely known for outdoor pursuits, orienteering, all different types of things like that. Now, we're not going to be doing anything that exotic on our tour, but it's just a lovely part of the world. And as I mentioned before, it's often overlooked on tours. A favorite souvenir that you can buy in Wales is a love spoon. Now, these are all handcrafted by artists, and they're all a little bit different. And what you do is you buy these and you give them to your loved ones on Valentine's Day. Of course, as I mentioned, no children on the tour, but I love this expression. I found this in a pub that I went to in the UK. Unattended children will be given a double espresso and a free kitten to take home. I love children, but I don't want them on my motor coach tour. So Denbighshire, Snowdonia National Park, that's where we are now. You can see on the bottom in this picture, that's one of the castles in Wales. And I mentioned there are quite a few of those. This is Carnarvon Castle, which is not a place to stay, but it's a sightseeing place. Snowdonia is an area of outstanding national beauty. It's like our national parks here, specifically designated as a rural natural location. You spend the day exploring the park and you go to the hotel for dinner. The accommodation is at the Mulberry Inn, which I believe I have a picture of later on in this presentation. Then we're going to Liverpool. Now, this is the favorite selfie spot in Liverpool. This is right in the harbor, the statues of the Fab Four. Lots of beautiful architecture too in Liverpool. I spent a few days in Liverpool just this past year, but it's a wonderful place to visit. Then we're going up to Castle Howard and the Lake District. So you go through Yorkshire Dales National Park, Yorkshire being a county, the head of which is the town of York. The dales are like hills and dales, so valleys in between the hills. You pass by rivers, tiny villages, and centuries-old stone walls. You share another meal tonight at the hotel, and the hotel is called the Lowood Bay Resort. I have stayed there as well, which is lovely. I have been to the UK more than 50 times, by the way. Here we are at Castle Howard. You could easily spend several days in Castle Howard just exploring the different rooms. But of course, we don't have time for several days at Castle Howard. The Lake District. It does all look like this beautiful lake and mountain scenery, very serene lakes. I believe we go on a boat tour on one of the lakes, Lake Windermere, probably. And then we're going past the border, which again is not a physical border, but it was the furthest outpost of the Roman Empire in England. And you go to a slight part of the wall that you can still see, which dates from Roman times. And there's also Bird's Wall, Roman fort that you can visit. Hadrian's Wall, that was the wall that separated the Roman Empire from the rest of the world. We're in the Scottish border area. And tonight we're going to have haggis. That's the traditional dinner that you have in Scotland. It's made with oats, and you have a bagpipe demonstration as well. Then we go to Rosslyn Chapel, again known not only for the Da Vinci Code, but it was a historic site as well before Dan Brown wrote the book. There's plenty of time to visit to Abbotsford House, home of Sir Walter Scott, and Rosslyn Chapel. And then our tour concludes in Edinburgh. When you see the letters at the end of each paragraph, like there, you see the letter B in parentheses, that means you're having breakfast that day. If you see B and D, it means you're having breakfast and dinner included in the tour. So on each and every night of your small tour, you'll be in some of the most charming boutique accommodations, garden resorts, elegant European manor houses. Each are unique and different. Of course, you'll have an opportunity to visit pubs. The pubs are sort of the soul of each town and village that you'll go to. And they're not necessarily just to drink. I mean, you can go there to have coffee and a piece of cake. It really all depends upon what you want, but it's the center of social life in England and in Scotland, Wales as well. So what are you waiting for? Get packing, go planning, and go beyond the guidebooks. And as a special, if you book in the next 10 days, there is a $200 discount. So instead of being $37.69 per person, it's $35.69 when you book now. And this is for any new bookings. Unfortunately, we can't change the price for anyone who has already booked the tour. So booking with Wise Women Travel Friends is easy. You can call us 516-248-3496. You can email me, wisewomentravelellen@gmail.com. And a deposit by credit card confirms your place. You book early for the best rates and availability. We do run out of space, especially on the smaller motor coach tours, and single rooms are in very short supply. Of course, we need to talk a little bit about travel insurance. To me, travel insurance is really for peace of mind. You not only don't want to have to worry about canceling your tour and losing money, but you want to cover things like your medical expenses, evacuation insurance, and it's fairly reasonable to cover your expenses. It costs $70 per $1,000 worth of coverage. So if your tour is $3,000, it is going to cost you $210 for travel insurance. And it covers things like accidents, sickness, medical expense, losing your bags, if your flights are delayed, medical evacuation, if you have to be flown home, if you're quite ill. Even if you lose your passport, it covers that as well. You always want to take out travel insurance with your deposit because that covers you for pre-existing conditions. It is the same price if you take it out later, closer to departure. And by the way, you cannot take out travel insurance and be fully covered within 30 days of departure. So you have to take it out somewhere between the time you give a deposit for the tour and 30 days before departure. But the sooner, the better. So if you enjoyed this presentation, you can subscribe to my monthly travel newsletter. You can just send an email to me, wisewomentravelellen@gmail.com. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box. I'm going to stop the recording now, and we can just have a chat as well. If you want to unmute yourselves, you can ask questions as well.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I've been down. So in terms of how long are we at each place? In other words, a village. There's a lot of cute little villages in the Cotswolds. That's where I'm mostly interested in going to. Are we going to be stopping in these villages or just kind of driving through them and stopping only at mentioned?
No, you are going to be visiting some of the villages. You'll have time to shop. Will you have unlimited time? No. We have an agenda to keep as well. But I don't think you'll feel rushed. As I've mentioned, because you're on a smaller tour, you're going to have more opportunity to go places where we're not with crowds of people. If you go into a town, let's say Broadway in the Cotswolds, that's one of those antique-filled towns. You'll probably have 45 minutes to an hour to shop, but it all depends, on the group. Usually in a small group, you don't have any of those people who just have disregard for everyone else and show back up at the coach whenever they feel like it, instead of when the tour guide told you to come back. So you will have time to do things like that.
And then how many hours on the coach per day do you think it is?
Each day is going to be different, but
you have to average it, like
usually,
how much time?
Okay. Usually you're going to leave 9 o'clock in the morning. You're going to make a rest stop, not a rest stop, but a bathroom stop somewhere along the way. You're going to do sightseeing in the morning. You'll stop for lunch, probably in one of those quaint little towns like the ones in the Cotswolds. So in the 3 hours between 9 and 12, you're probably on the coach for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then in the afternoon, it's the same thing. We don't like to pull into a hotel, late at night. You want to be there before dinner time so you can shower and change if you want to do that, maybe just relax before dinner. But each day is different. Each day it depends on traffic. You know, there's a lot of different variables. But the whole idea is not for you to be sitting on a coach the whole length of time. It's either to be stopping and either, you know, having a snack or to see something, but you're not spending hours and hours on motorways. I know sometimes people, when they plan a tour, you know, maybe they have a week off from work. And so they try to cram in every possible thing into that week. And you spend all your time just getting from place to place rather than enjoying your trip. But you're not going to find that on a smaller tour. Now, Lenore has gone on some of our smaller tours. Did you feel rushed, like, let's say, when you went to Sicily?
No, absolutely not. No, you had leisure time. Told you exactly what, shopping is at this time. We're going to take you on a guided tour, for an hour or whatever, and then shopping at your leisure. You could have lunch, things like that. It was fine.
Okay. Mm-hmm.